Oh, there he goes. That was Walter, my cat. Hello, my name is GlitchWitch.JPG, and I make videos about internet horror, ranging from analog horror, digital horror, creepypasta, internet urban legends, internet ARGs, and sometimes survival horror video games. And today, we're going into my beloved analog horror, but a little bit differently. So, most of the series or videos that I cover on my channel are from YouTube. And that is because I primarily consume YouTube. I enjoy watching YouTube videos. I think internet horror has found its niche within, YouTube. But, with the rise of short form content like TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, we are seeing creators utilize those platforms to create internet horror stories as well. And today I'm going to be looking at a short form internet horror series called The World of Mr. Plant. Also Gardening with Argo, but they're kind of like together. They're very much together, the characters. This is a series created by a internet horror, weirdcore creator named Asher Garavi, who is super cool. I have followed him for a while now, and it's funny, I didn't start following him because I knew he was an internet horror creator, and I think that, that was one of the reasons I wanted to make this video, because I feel like maybe, the YouTube internet horror community isn't as aware of his stuff. I started following him because he modeled for Neohudu X's clothing line, and she is the winner of season 5 of Dragula, the Boulet Brothers Dragula, and I love Neo. She's super talented. If you are into creepy, beautiful horror stuff, you gotta follow Neo, and you also just need to watch Dragula. If you are into horror, Dragula it cannot be beat. I saw him through her and I was like, oh, this guy looks cool. I like his vibe. He's does kind of, if he's friends with Neo, he's ooky, spooky, kooky. And then I went on his page and was like, oh, he creates internet horror content. Bonus. So I've kind of just been sitting on this for a while, wanting to cover some of his stuff, because he has several projects, with The World of Mr. Plant, I would say definitely being the biggest and the longest, has the most content so far. So I just want to take a look at it today. Honestly, it's just kind of a casual chit chat about what the series is about and what I like about it, because it's very different from the content I usually cover, not just the format of it being more short form. Tonally, it's also very different. I think it's one of the most wholesome, nice analog horror projects I've ever seen. There's still scary and intense subject matter covered, but in general, it's very sweet.
Wednesday is Mr. Plant's favorite day of the week because now he can do what he always wanted to: watch television.
Please don't kill me. I have a wife and kids.
He likes dark comedies best, but sometimes he gets commercials.
Do you want a star? Well, now you can have one for only $1. What are you waiting for? Come on over.
Mr. Plant hated the Moon Man's fake accent, but the stars looked awfully nice.
Are you here to buy a star? Only $1? With that you can only buy a sad star. Don't you want a happy star? Happy stars are only $9.99.
If the Moon Man didn't stop talking soon, Mr. Plant would make him.
You know, you're a terrible person, coming to space with only $1 when you knew they were $9.99. Take it, take your measly little star and get out. And be careful, because the edges are sharp. Wait.
The star is ruined.
Mr. Plant?
As if Mr. Plant's day couldn't get any worse.
Mr. Plant, I saw this on TV and I thought of you.
Maybe Argos isn't so bad all the time.
I was thinking maybe we could go stargazing or...
Mr. Plant returns to the TV. Another successful Wednesday.
Which I think is cool, because a lot of the internet horror that, presents as sweet, it is a facade. Things like Welcome Home, or The Walton Files, or play that I covered recently with Mr. Simon. And that's fine. I'm not criticizing those things for doing that. It's an effective horror tool. But to see a series play out that, you know, the cute wholesomeness is more the main event and the horror is almost secondary, I think that's interesting. I think it's cool. And frankly, I needed something sweet to talk about this week because here was my week of watching things. Walter, my cat is playing with things he should. Walter, good boy. My week of watching things this week was warranted me needing something nice. I watched the entire second season of Arcane in one day last week. And yes, I'm a JVIC. Of course I am. Did you have to ask? And then yesterday, I watched the end of Evangelion for the first time ever. So I needed something nice to talk about. I couldn't function or handle talking about something not nice. So thank you, Mr. Plant. I needed this. Let's just get into it. What is the world of Mr. Plant? The world of Mr. Plant is an ongoing, I assume primarily TikTok. I watched the compilation video on Asher's YouTube channel because, again, I am a grandmother and I need to watch it on YouTube. I can't handle the short form. I can stomach Instagram Reels, but TikTok scares me. I've never had a TikTok account. I'm too scared to make one now. I do believe that primarily TikTok is where Asher posts these, and it follows two main characters, the titular Mr. Plant, who is a humanoid plant man, who's a bit of a grumpy Gus, and then his friend and later boyfriend, spoiler alert, it happens pretty quickly into the series. I can't make a video on the world of Mr. Plant without talking about how they are boyfriends. It is impossible to do. Impossible. God, I can't speak English. End of Ava really f***ed me up if you can't tell. And then his boyfriend Argos, who is a humanoid creature that has lots of eyes on his face. That's who I'm channeling today. I'm trying to give Argos, I do not have whiteout contacts though, so I traded the whiteout contacts in for some flower nails. I think that would be cute if Argos was the type to get an acrylic set, he would get flowers for his boyfriend, Mr. Plant. Argos is the opposite of Mr. Plant. Very sweet, wants to make a lot of friends, and he loves plants. Not just Mr. Plant, but flowers. His sub-series within the series is Gardening with Argos, where he travels around and finds exotic plants to show to the audience. And Asher did confirm in one of his Q&A videos that Argos's plants and Mr. Plant, it's kind of like a Goofy and Pluto scenario where Mr. Plant is a sentient walking human being type plant, and then the plants are like Pluto, they're pets. So does that make sense? It makes sense to me. I hope it makes sense to you. This world that Mr. Plant and Argos live in is called the Void, and essentially there's not one void, there's multiple voids. Kind of different, I think of it as different dimensions, but you can easily travel between them, and Mr. Plant and Argos don't even live in the same void. They live in neighboring voids, so they became friends because they lived near each other. So even though a void sounds so large you couldn't leave it, people that live within the void can travel around. Except there's void number 1, which it is discouraged that you travel to because bad things can happen, and that's explored later in the series. There's no concrete hardcore storyline besides the fact that Mr. Plant and Argos get closer and closer and become boyfriends, and things happen around that. Mr. Plant is not afraid to murder people. And that's where the horror comes in. He loves to watch TV and will pretty much do anything to be able to continue to watch TV. He is motivated to get a job pretty much only so that he can watch TV, whereas Argos is like one of those guys that's just constantly has like 3 jobs at once because he just likes helping people and like doing things. Like he constantly has to be doing stuff and around people. Mr. Plant is the opposite of that. So they're an odd couple. It's a very cute dynamic. Frankly, it's probably one of my favorite couples I've seen in internet horror. Like there's just something cute about them. You know, the setup of this series is very simple, but it's like infinitely, like the possibilities are infinite. Asher plays both the characters. With Mr. Plant, it's just like a cardboard mask for his head, and then Argos has the googly eyes on him. But he creates all these different masks for all the different characters that show up and plays all of them. And as the series continues, like the effects and the art gets more sophisticated, like there's more animation, and I think it's really neat, and it's a lot of work being put into very short form content, and I feel like that's often why I don't review short form content on my channel, is because we don't necessarily see, you know, series like this put out because it takes so much work. Like people are probably more likely to take all the time to put that into like a 10-minute YouTube video or a 5-minute YouTube video rather than like a 30-second short, because I know this has to still take him days just with all of the filming, making the you know, masks, doing the animation, all of that, writing the story. So I think it's impressive, and I think it's smart though, because there's not as much of it on those platforms, so it does stand out. Like clearly, I know that there's a big fan base around the world of Mr. Plant, which is cool, and Asher's very open about, like, not necessarily engaging with the fan base, but just like talking about it. Like he has videos on his YouTube channel. Do you see this? Walter, do you see my Faith the Unholy Trinity tapestry shaking? It's because my cat's behind it. He has videos on his YouTube channel where he like looks at like the Tumblr tags and looks at fan art, and like has a wall of a bunch of fan art behind him when he records his YouTube videos, and he even has a video where he reads a Mr. Plant X Argos fanfiction and is like a very good sport about it. So immediately, if you're a GlitchWitch regular, you know that I respect a fanfiction reader. I have read several creepypasta fanfictions on my channel, and I love the art of fanfiction. And it was funny watching this poor man discover what the Omegaverse was in real time.
An alpha, probably one who's close to their rut. If Mr. Plant went out more, there's a chance Mr. Plant might have been able to understand whose scent it was. Are they wolves in this fanfiction?
Oh, there's my cat. Walter. This is Walter. You want to chew on the flowers. I don't think Argos would like it if you chewed on his flowers. I'm gonna hold this firmly so he doesn't knock it down. Oh, yum, fake flowers. Yum. But I think that the world of Mr. Plant is such a great example of how cool DIY can be, especially, you know, like live action physical prop DIY, and that's another thing we don't often see in internet horror. A lot of stuff that's animated, it's not, you know, stop motion or puppeting real objects. It's usually like 3D rendered, or it's, you know, animated like in After Effects or something like that. And I know that Asher uses like Photoshop and stuff to animate a lot of his stuff, but he is animating cutouts of his like real construction paper and like cardboard props, which I think is really cool, and I think that contributes to the whole weird core of it all. And I know the series started because like that was like he was doing different like internet aesthetics, and Mr. Plant came out of him trying to do weird core, and I definitely think when I look at this, I think weird core before I think analog horror, just because it's not as stereotypically analog horror as even some of Asher's other projects like The Mourner, which is definitely kind of like visually more up my alley and very like scary in the analog horror scary face of it all. But I would still classify Mr. Plant as analog horror because Asher does, so I'm gonna respect the creator. But I also think a predecessor to this newer wave we're seeing in analog horror. I think that Mr. Plant's been going on for like since 2021 or something. Like it's been going on for a while, especially in internet horror timelines. That's pretty old, you know? But we're seeing more modern analog horror projects like Dr. Nowhere's stuff and even Walking Bonk, where they're playing with aesthetics more. Like, I would say that, you know, Walking Bonk's bright colors and general aesthetic is very, like, weirdcore, dreamcore vibes, even if, you know, the kind of application of it is very more traditional analog horror. And same, you know, Dr. Nowhere's stuff is very whimsical and light, and maybe not as cutesy as Mr. Plant is, but there are definitely things that Dr. Nowhere has done that I would consider cute. I think his character Soap is very sweet and cute. But, you know, the boiled one, maybe not so much, but also maybe. I kind of think he's just a little guy. I just like seeing a variety of styles and themes within internet horror. And one thing I do really appreciate about this series is the fact that we have, like, an openly gay couple. And yes, that openly gay couple may be a plant man and a guy covered in eyes, but love is love. But I think that there are a lot of queer people in the internet horror community, and it's not always represented in the actual content, which is fine. That's not me shading, you know, existing creators that haven't done that. Frankly, romance is usually not a big part of internet horror. That's just not the driving force. Usually, like, there's way too much, like, heavy shit going on for there to be time to explore romantic relationships. Pretty much the only one that comes to my head that's done that is the Monument Mythos with Virginia and her boyfriend. And that's very much a tragic love story. It's really sad. And that's also a series that is very slow and takes its time delivering the story. So there is room for it. But other, you know, series like the Walton Files and the Mandela Catalog, like, there's just not time for that. I mean, the closest thing to the Mandela Catalog is you can maybe, if you're really reaching, think that maybe Thatcher and Ruth had something going on, but also you can just mark that down as, like, they are partners and respect each other, and that's, you know, he lost his best friend kind of thing. But that's about the only, like, of the big analog horrors where I could even glean a little bit of romance. But again, both of those examples I just gave were straight relationships, which again is fine. I'm a straight woman, so, like, but I think it's nice because I think that seeing a very sweet, wholesome gay relationship in internet horror is probably very affirming for, like, a large group of the internet horror community. And I'm sure that, like, a lot of younger people probably like this series, because I've seen there's a big fandom around it. There's a lot of, like, drawings and little, like, sweet fan fictions and stuff like that. So I think it's, like, a really good, I don't want to say baby's first internet horror because I'm almost 30 and I love this, but it is a good kind of gateway to see if you're into this kind of DIY, you know, internet horror vibe, weirdcore, dreamcore, all that. And I also think that some other interesting topics are touched upon in Mr. Plant, besides the fact that you have the main couple is openly gay, and that's not really ever even an issue. Like, they just are. Like, it's not like they face discrimination in The Void. The Void is ahead of us as far as, you know, equality and all that goes, so good job to The Void. But another thing that this series tackles that I really didn't expect was gentrification.
Halloween with Mr. Plant. Mr. Plant liked Halloween, but his excitement was nothing compared to Argus's.
Our place needs to be the scariest this year. I want the trick-or-treaters to be terrified. Mr. Plant, could you go get us a pumpkin to carve into a jack-o'-lantern?
Mr. Plant was happy to help and headed to the pumpkin store, but unfortunately all the stores were out.
The humans bought all the pumpkins right away. I was able to double my prices for the last batch.
Mr. Plant was on his way home when he came upon a human's house.
My husband and I love it here. The void is kind of like our home now, don't you think?
We love the void, don't we, Jimmy?
Yeah, we love it.
Surely the human family could spare just one pumpkin.
These aren't for sale. We bought them days ago before they changed the price.
We're not going to sell to some plant. We prefer the company of other humans.
Get out of here.
We don't want you here.
Go away. You're
Leave
scary.
Mr. Plant returned home empty-handed.
You couldn't find a pumpkin? How are we supposed to have a jack-o'-lantern?
Mr. Plant had an idea. Mr. Plant was proud of his innovation. Happy Halloween.
And I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this. This is a really cool way to tackle this subject. So essentially the void is full of, you know, non-human creatures. Like the only really humanoid creature is Argos, but he is not a typical human. Obviously he's got all the eyes and stuff. Like, you know, he is a creature of the void. But we have plant creatures and animal creatures and object creatures like the TV man and the mushroom people and things like that. But then humans keep coming in, but they don't want to be around people from the void. Like, they're discriminatory of people in the void, but they're moving in, they're taking up spaces, they're driving prices up.
The cost of a ticket depends on how busy it is. Sometimes you can pay with a feather or a rare flower. How much for a ticket today? Because humans have been moving to the void, prices have skyrocketed.
Like, it is very clearly a gentrification allegory, which I think is really interesting because that's not a subject I've ever seen tackled in internet horror. It's definitely a big, like, societal problem that's hard to talk about, and you know, it's not one that I would think about being talked about in internet horror. Maybe there's some creepypastas out there that have dealt with it. That's about the only other format I could see it working in. But mixing it in slowly throughout this series was a really cool and smart way to tackle it. I think that these characters could communicate a lot of different societal issues just by how they are. Like, you know, Mr. Plant is very much an introverted person who struggles to communicate with people. I think that you could explore someone on the spectrum in that way. Things like that. I know Asher's talked about potentially having Mr. Plant do ASL, because he doesn't ever verbally speak, and some of the fan creations, either the fan fictions or the fan art, have depicted Mr. Plant using ASL. So that's another thing you could tackle, you know, people with disabilities, things like that. So I think these characters are infinitely usable isn't the word I want to use, because that sounds like creepy kind of, but I think you can put them in many scenarios, and I think they can tell many different stories, and that's the mark of a strong writer. Like, Asher has written two very compelling characters that I think the possibilities are infinite, and I think just watching them together is infinitely entertaining because they are such an odd couple, but they explore, like, struggles that people can have in relationships in just this cool, weird core kind of way. Like, you know, I appreciate seeing Argos realizing he's being too, like, pushy about making Mr. Plant, like, go out and do things, or get recognition, or be seen, or, you know, be an extrovert, essentially. And he realizes, like, oh, I need to respect, you know, what my boyfriend wants to do. He likes to stay inside. There's nothing wrong with wanting to stay inside. But at the same time, Mr. Plant learns, you know, Argos likes birthday parties, and Argos likes little gifts, and he likes to go out on dates. But they can, like, meet in the middle, and that's another thing that I think is really important if there is a younger audience watching this, is showing these, like, healthy relationship dynamics in a very, like, sweet way. Like, obviously there's no, like, there's nothing sexual with Mr. Plant and Argos because they literally can't touch because Asher's playing both of them. So it is funny that there's, like, fan fiction, because of course there is, because all these, you know, fan fiction writers are like, they're both touch-starved because they, the very premise of making the series prohibits them from even holding hands. Oh, and like another thing that it tackled was like CSA. So, you know, it's very sweet and cute, but then it tackles these like heavy subjects that just kind of like come out of nowhere, but it's handled in like a really respectful way. Because there's an episode where Argos is like a Void troop leader, like a, you know, Cub Scout leader, and he keeps wanting Mr. Plant to come with him, you know, because like the kids love Mr. Plant, because like what kid wouldn't love a giant, like brightly colored, cool, pretty looking plant man? But of course Mr. Plant is like, ugh, get these children away from me. Essentially, they're selling cookies, and then people keep saying no, and then they end up at this guy's house, and essentially it's a bad situation with the kids, and Argos is not, you know, a big guy that can like defend the kids, but Mr. Plant shows up and takes care of business, as he often does. I do feel that I'm downplaying the fact that Mr. Plant does kill a lot. If he is slightly annoyed, he just kills people. And when I say people, I mean the people of the Void, which are animals and creatures. He kills a clockman that gives him a hard time and literally like puts the clock head man on the wall, and then Argos later replaces it. Like he gets him a gift of like a normal clock, and then he takes the bloody clock off the wall and puts you know, the nice new one that Argos got him. Which I just, you know, sometimes I would forget that it's a horror series almost. And then Mr. Plant would like, not gruesome, but kind of gruesomely kill someone. And I do applaud the fact that Argos is like, I'll help you bury a body, it's okay. Like he is that down bad for Mr. Plant, and I respect it. I respect the hustle, my man. So yeah, I just really enjoyed this, like watching this series, and I encourage you guys to take a look at it too. This, again, like I said, it's not really like an analysis video, because I don't really think there's that much to analyze besides some of the stuff I've already talked about, like the gentrification and you know, how cool it is to see like gay representation. Beyond that, I just kind of want to get more like YouTube eyes on this. I know I don't have a big following, like Asher has a much bigger following than I do, but I think sometimes, you know, these TikTok series don't get seen as much on YouTube. So I kind of just want to do that, even if just like my subscribers see this and then check this out. That'll make me happy. And if there are any Mr. Plant standees that find this, hello, I like your fandom. I think you're neat. These eyes are killing me, y'all. They itch so bad. That's another thing. I don't know how he does that all the time. Like, ooh, and my hair's sticking to them. Oh, I applaud. He's also just a great makeup artist. Like, he does a lot of, like, photo shoots. He did a Jeff the Killer, which I love. He did a whole video, like, showing himself get into Jeff the Killer makeup, and like talk about his relationship with Jeff the Killer, which I thought was really cool, because I love creepypasta, I love Jeff the Killer. I have a very visceral reaction to Jeff the Killer, so I was a little scared of seeing him in Jeff the Killer drag there, but he did a better job than I did when I did my Jeff the Killer look. If you just like cool horror makeup, you should follow him on like Instagram and stuff too, because he's very good at it. And he's done several other series, so if you'd like me to like look at some of his other stuff, let me know. I'd be happy to. I could even kind of go like video by video for some of those. There's just too many Mr. Plant videos for me to like sit and watch the whole thing with y'all, but you know, you saw I included clips here and there when I could. But yeah, please follow Asher Garavi on all social medias. He's very talented. We love to see it. And you know, let me know what you'd like me to cover. I've definitely been very analog horror heavy as of late, because there's just been a lot of good analog horror lately. And there's even more that I'd love to cover. And please suggest things you would like me to cover. Creepypasta, analog horror, digital horror. I still owe a Silent Hill 2 video, and that's just like, I don't even know what to say, because I feel like everything's already been said. And like, how many ways can I say I love it so much? Because I do. I would like to thank my YouTube members. The Creepypasta OCs are up on screen, and then in Survival Horror Emo, we have E-Rob and So-Called Punk, and then in Analog Horror Scary Face, we have Kira Coffer. If you'd like to become a YouTube member, you can check out the join button next to the subscribe button. But you know, a like, a subscribe, a comment, a share means the world to me. So I'm gonna go explore different voids so that I can get more cool plants. This is a skeleton plant. I don't know. This is just in my house, by the way. I didn't like set dress this for the video. It's just like this. There were more skeletons in it, but my cats chewed them out. And we can't have real flowers because of the cats, so skeleton plant will have to do. My friend Megan gave me this Donald and Daisy vase though for my birthday a few years ago, and I do love it. It's really cute. Speaking of cute today. But thank you so much for watching. May you find a man as loyal as Mr. Plant. Bye.